and I'm the editor, creator, and producer of what you're watching right now, Blade Talk. If you are new here, welcome, and you found this presentation helpful, informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. So I recently did a presentation on Bible stories, and I took a look at the 4 events that happened in Genesis, that being the Adam and Eve story, Cain and Abel story, Noah and the flood, and the Tower of Babel. And I got comments and I got sent emails about my interpretation of the 5th event, and that being Jacob and Esau. And they wanted to hear my interpretation. So here we are. So if you're interested, let's hit that intro and let's begin. All right, so here we are, the story of Jacob and Esau. As always, I'm going to give my interpretation, what I gained from this story, and feel free to leave it in the comments down below, your interpretation and what you got from the story. So, the story of Jacob and Esau is one of the great controversies in all of Jewish history. It is the question of whether Jacob stole Esau's birthright and his blessing. These are controversial events even now. So Jacob's controversy begins at the very beginning with the birthright. We have a simple scenario. Esau is Jacob's brother and he's a hunter. He comes back from the field and he's hungry. He demands of Jacob to pour into me now some of that very red stuff, for I am exhausted. Jacob says, "Sell me as of this day your birthright to me." Esau says, "I'm going to die, so what good is a birthright to me?" The deal is struck. The Torah reports that Jacob asks for Esau's oath, and Esau promptly gives it. Esau ate the bread and soup. Thus, Jacob took the birthright. So people have asked for a while, is this Jacob cheating Esau? Or is this actually a fair and square deal? Well, the truth is, in the long run, everyone dies, so you shouldn't think too much into the future, right? Wrong. That is a deeply immoral principle. The progress of mankind is dependent on you making sacrifices for your children and your children making sacrifices for their children, etc., etc. Thus, for generations, you have a chain of sacrifices. In this story, Esau is the epitome of a short-term thinker. He says, look, I'm going to die, so what good is a birthright to me? He's not literally saying he's going to die of starvation unless he gets some soup. He is articulating a principle that what matters is my material well-being today. It is not about me sacrificing today on behalf of tomorrow. Jacob sees this and says, the birthright matters to me because it's not about what happens to me. It is about what happens to my children and their children. This is the major difference in the Torah between Esau and Jacob. Esau is described as a hunter, and Jacob is described as a wholesome man. In other words, Esau lives day to day. He is about going out and providing food for today. Jacob is the one who cultivates. Domestication and cultivation is the essence of civilization, which is why the birthright should descend on the person who is thinking towards the future. Now, this still doesn't answer why Jacob needed to trick his father. So Jacob has a normal market exchange with Esau. For Esau, his birthright is literally not worth a bowl of soup. Jacob knows this, so he takes the birthright. But then why does Jacob have to trick his father? When he comes to Isaac's bedside, Jacob once again engages in deceit. Isaac has gone blind by this point and tells Esau, I have aged and don't know how much time I have left. Sharpen your gear, your sword, and your bow. Go out into the field and hunt game for me. Then make me delicacies, which I love. Bring it to me so that I may eat, and my soul shall bless you before I die. Now, obviously, Rebekah, the mother of Esau and Jacob, believes that Esau is a bad guy and Jacob is a good guy, so she covers Jacob up with rough skin to imitate Esau. She cooks up the meal for Isaac, just as Isaac told Esau to do, and then she sends in Jacob to see Isaac. Now, Isaac immediately recognizes something's up. Isaac says, Who are you, my son? Jacob replies that he is Esau. Isaac doesn't really believe that, so he says, How is it you are so quick to find my son? Meaning, how did you make this food so fast? Jacob gives an answer that kind of makes it obvious that he is not Esau. Jacob says, Because your God arranged it for me. It is very out of character for Esau to credit God. So Isaac gets even more suspicious and says, Come closer if you please, so I can feel you, my son. He asks, Are you indeed my son Esau or not? As Jacob gets closer, Isaac says, The voice is Jacob's voice, but the hands are Esau's hands. But Isaac blesses him anyway. In other words, Isaac knows something is up. A few moments later, Esau shows up, and Isaac doesn't know who he is. But when Esau identifies himself, Isaac realizes that he has given the blessing to the wrong son. Isaac says, Who is the one who hunted game, brought it to me, and I ate it, when you have not yet come, and I blessed him? Indeed, he shall remain blessed. So Isaac doesn't take back the blessing. Why? Well, the first question I always wondered is, why does Isaac require Esau to go hunting and cook him a meal? It's kind of a weird condition. My second question is, why didn't Jacob just go to his dad and say, I deserve the birthright because I'm a long-term thinker and Esau is a short-term thinker? The oddest part is that Isaac doesn't reverse the blessing after he sees that he's been deceived. He doesn't go, Oh, your brother stole the blessing, so I will reverse it and bless you. After all, a blessing given under false pretenses is not effective. For example, in the Torah, if you say the blessing for wine over bread, you haven't actually blessed the bread, halakhically speaking. Blessings are specific and require specific intent. So if Isaac didn't intend to give the blessing to Jacob, then why was the blessing still effective? So let's go back to the story for a second. Isaac orders Esau to go hunting, cook a meal, and prepare it for him. That request isn't actually about a meal. After all, Rebekah can make a meal for him if he's hungry. What Isaac is actually doing is asking Esau to prepare the meal because he wants Esau to show him that he can be more than just a hunter, that he can actually think about the future. Cooking a meal requires figuring out the ingredients you need. It requires patience, attention to detail, and then it requires you to give it away. Isaac is thinking about the future of his family and the Jewish people. So Isaac is saying to Esau, I know that you're a fighter and you are a protector, but can you think ahead? In Isaac's eyes, by contrast, Jacob has a long way to go. Jacob is a forward thinker, but Jacob is always seen in the Torah as kind of the weaker character in terms of defending himself. He is more submissive and less aggressive. He thinks in advance, but he's not tough enough. So when Jacob shows up wearing Esau's skin, Isaac doesn't know what to think. He doesn't know who this is. Is this Esau who is finally coming around and thinking ahead? Or is this Jacob doing the unthinkable and braving the possibility of his dad getting mad at him, using whatever means necessary to protect himself and his future? In the end, these are my thoughts. Isaac doesn't actually care. Whoever this is, whether it is Esau or Jacob, gets the blessing. Why? Because this person has demonstrated both an attention to self-defense and the immediate, but also an attention to the future. You have to do both in life. If you sacrifice the present in favor of the future, that's no good. If you sacrifice the future in favor of the present, that's no good either. And that is the theme here. Jacob is supposed to be the model for the Jewish people. You see, Jacob thinks of the present and also thinks of the future. This is what makes a successful Jewish person. The idea that you will do whatever it takes to preserve our tradition through the generations, but also thinking about today. You study Torah yourself and you learn, but you also teach your children and your grandchildren. It is the idea that you should be a student and a teacher simultaneously. That is what Jacob represented. Esau, on the other hand, only thought about the present and didn't care about the future generations. Rebekah saw this as well, which is why she helped Jacob. Always remember that the best teachers are students themselves. That is why I say it doesn't matter what movement of Judaism you are, as long as you're ashamed of it. If you have a teacher and that teacher just goes with whatever the movement says, then what you have ultimately is a consensus machine. If you go to your local rabbi, whether you're Orthodox, whether you're conservative, whether you're Reform, and they don't challenge other perspectives and narratives, even if it's their own, then I would argue that that's not a good teacher. You should always have a teacher that questions different perspectives, the status quo, if you will. If you have a teacher that says whatever the Reform movement says, I agree with. Whatever the conservative movement says, I agree with. Whatever the Orthodox movement says, I agree with. Then what you have ultimately is a consensus machine. They're not actually thinking for themselves. And what I've learned is that amazing teachers question. They dare to think and question, which is what I honestly got from the Abraham story as well. So, very quickly, we all know the story of Abraham sacrificing his son Isaac, okay? And before Abraham did it, an angel of God appeared and sent in a ram for Abraham to sacrifice instead of Abraham's son. Now, many people speculate that God was just testing Abraham, in which I agree. But where I disagree is that Abraham actually passed the test. You see, I believe Abraham failed that test. Abraham was going to sacrifice his son because God told him to. No reason, no context, nothing. Abraham was going to do it before God stopped him. In my opinion, Abraham failed. He failed that test. Then God tested him again later, and when God came to Abraham and said that he was going to destroy Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham argued with God and asked for context. Then he said maybe he can find some good people there. God gave Abraham context, and then God destroyed the cities. The point was that Abraham didn't blindly follow this time. Only the weak don't challenge authority. The Torah doesn't give absolute truths on everything. The Torah is an invitation to truth seeking. Again, human beings are made to reason. Small-minded people give up on the first inconsistency or perceived contradiction in the Torah. Deep-minded individuals try to find the hidden meanings and gain wisdom. It teaches you how to think critically. When something doesn't make sense to you on the surface, it doesn't mean that there isn't something to learn. It means you need to use your reasoning skills to uncover the hidden meanings. That is why I love the Torah. So in my humble opinion, again, Abraham failed the first test because God came and said, kill your son. And Abraham, without question, was going to do it. He didn't ask why, he didn't ask for context, nothing. And as Abraham learned, and as Abraham grew, he started to understand more. And when God came to him and threatened to annihilate Sodom and Gomorrah, Abraham argued with God. I need context. I need to know why you're doing this. And let me argue with you. What if there are good people there? Abraham grew wiser. So I think that it's important that we question. I think that it is very important. Again, stay away from teachers that tell you, and whatever the movement says, you go along with it. That's not an actual teacher. It's a consensus machine. There's always another side to interpretation. And it's up to you to find out which interpretation works for you. Up until the Hazonish, Orthodox Jews, believe it or not, on Shabbat, used electricity. It wasn't until the Hazonish came and said, we don't need to use electricity. And everybody caught on because the Orthodox has the mindset that the more primitive you are, the more religious you are, etc., etc. Now, most of the Orthodox movement doesn't use electricity on Shabbat. So it's all about the consensus. And you're not allowed to challenge that. And that's one of the things that I disagree with. And as far as the conservative movement, which I happen to be a part of, and this is part of my bias, I know, it gives you multiple interpretations. And there are some that use electricity on Shabbos, and there are some that don't. But it's up to you. Use your reasoning skills. That's what human beings were meant for. At times, We have to be God's moral partners on this earth, and even, dare I say, at times, his critic. Our job is to reason. That's when human beings, we are at our best. When we learn to think critically and we use those skills. So many abandon that skill because they don't want to think, they don't want to dive too deep. So they just accept the surface level and they leave it at that. And I think that that is a great mistake. You should always dive deeper, ask questions, and use your reasoning skills. So that's my interpretation of the Jacob and Esau story. If you found this presentation helpful and informative, do me a huge favor and hit that like button. Do me an even greater favor and subscribe to my channel. I always appreciate all the support that I am given. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Blade Talk. Be good to yourselves, be good to others, and until the next presentation, you all take care.